Hey guys, what's going on? I am here in front of my microphone today because I want to discuss what is what's going on with Nintendo for the rest of 2020. We got another trailer for Xenoblade Chronicles remake or remastered or whatever they're calling it. I know it's a full remake. And honestly, it looks really good. I'm super excited to play that game. I loved the original, and I'm excited to, play it with new content, and it's looking really good and stuff. The art style looks really nice. But, what is gonna happen for the rest of this year? I've been thinking about this a lot, and honestly, I'm not really sure. No one knows. I think to an extent, Nintendo doesn't even know. I mean, E3 is canceled. They basically said there's not going to be a direct either. I'm not ruling out, small, social media announcements and stuff like that. But I mean, the biggest problem is that because of this pandemic, game developers can't be developing games in their normal work environment. And, I'm not a person who's ever made a game before, but developing games, is something, it's a collaborative process. It's things aren't going to be getting made as usual, for the foreseeable future. I mean, who knows when this is all going to go back to normal, but and it's not like I'm not sitting here complaining oh, I have no games to play, because I mean, honestly, the beginning of this year has actually been pretty good for games. We've gotten the Resident Evil 3 remake, we've gotten the Final Fantasy 7 remake. I haven't even played either of them yet, but I want to. We almost got The Last of Us 2. Personally, I don't really care about that, but that game just is going to keep getting delayed no matter what's going on, if you ask me. But that's just my insane tinfoil hat theory. But anyway, and then we have the last game that you'll ever need to play for the rest of your life, Animal Crossing New Horizons, which is mostly what I've been playing, if I'm being completely honest. But yeah, so I've just been doing a lot of thinking, what can Nintendo do for the rest of this year, that will keep their workers safe while also pleasing fans. And I know that there's so much just horrible stuff going on with this virus in the world right now, and really video games should be the last of our worries, but it's something to think about. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I'm sure there's other people out there who are what is Nintendo gonna do? I mean, they're still a company, and they're doing really well with Animal Crossing and the Switch, but they've even said they're not really able to. I mean, you can see it if you, I guess you aren't really going to stores right now, but I mean, the Switch is sold out almost everywhere. I'm living in Japan right now, and people I've met are oh my god, you have a Switch? I want one. I want to play Animal Crossing, but they can't buy one anywhere. Maybe it's a little bit better in America, but right now I don't really know what that situation is from firsthand experience. But here in Japan, the Switch is sold out everywhere. I haven't seen a single one since I've gotten here, which was almost a month and a half ago now. I kind of moved to Japan at a really bad time, but it's just temporary for work. But anyway, enough about me. So my idea for how Nintendo could keep putting stuff out this year, keep making content, is honestly, it's as simple as just dipping into their back catalog of games. They have the Nintendo Switch Online service, and it's weird. I still have really mixed feelings about Nintendo Switch Online, specifically, the way that they use it to get retro games out there, because it was such a slow trickle of NES games, and people were always complaining about that. And then they're like, okay, Super Nintendo games are here. That was last September, and then Super Nintendo games came. We got 20 Super Nintendo games, right? And then they're like, okay, no more monthly updates. And that was just why? I don't understand why that was their decision, because what have we seen? one update since then, or two. It's been like one or two updates. They added, I think, Kirby Superstar, and something else. I don't know. That Twin Bee game, which is like cool. Like those are both really cool games. But like, why? Why did they have to stop putting games out on that service? So what? I mean, there's my idea. You know, dip into that retro catalog. Now, I wanted to talk about like how on the Wii U and 3DS, like, we complained about how Nintendo was so slow about putting, you know, virtual console games out on those two systems. But with the Switch, it's been even worse. It's like, sure, like you pay for this service and you get all the games. You know, you don't have to pay for them separately. But it's like now like that we're getting even less games, you know? It's like we're getting even less games and we're still paying for this yearly service. You know, and $20 a year isn't terrible. I mean, if you're paying for the family plan, it's what, $35, and I think that's actually what I have because I share it with my sister. But it's like, yeah, I mean, we're paying for this yearly subscription, and it's like we're just not getting these games. Like, you know, the games that we have are cool, but it's like, you know, it just makes this subscription service feel, you know, like you're not getting that great of a value at times. But what I was saying about the Wii U was like, and the Wii U and 3DS was virtual console games, like, we were complaining that we weren't getting a lot of them, right? But, like, we were actually, it was honestly better than it is now, because we were getting games like Earthbound. I remember when Earthbound came out on the Switch, like, it got its own trailer, and it was like a big thing, and you know, it was what, $8? Like, that's really not bad for a game like Earthbound that can take you like 40 hours to beat. You know, and it's a really good game. I mean, Earthbound is one of my favorite games ever, and I played that game for the first time on the Wii U through the Virtual Console service. I remember I was 16, and when that game came out, and I had just started working like my first part-time job, and I remember, I'll never forget, with my first paycheck, I used that money to buy Earthbound on the Wii U. For $8, and I was like, this is great, and I was so excited to finally legitimately play that game. And then, you know, we got Earthbound Beginnings, and that was such a big deal, because like we were like, wow, like maybe there's hope for Mother 3, and Mother 3 is its own topic. I don't want to talk about that right now, but you know, it was like the Wii U was actually like we were seeing love for the Mother series from Nintendo, and that was really cool. And I feel like this year Nintendo could practice that sort of thing again. I mean, not specifically with the Mother series, that would be amazing, but like Nintendo, this is the year for them to dig into that back catalog of games, because, you know, obviously it's, I'm not saying that releasing retro games on the Switch takes absolutely no effort. I mean, I'm sure there's, you know, there's testing with the emulation that they use. I mean, technically, right, it's considered emulation. There's testing, you know, there's probably people who have to make sure the games run properly and all that stuff. And it is still work, but it's a different kind of work than people, you know, being creative, being collaborative, and building a new game together, you know, because it's just the way the world is right now. That isn't, you know, that's not really a possibility. So, you know, I want to see them dip into that back catalog of games, and I think that's really what we need to see from Nintendo this year. You know, there was that talk of the remastered collection of Mario games that was coming out for Mario's, what is it, 35th anniversary this year, or 30th or 35th anniversary. And it was going to be, what, Mario 64, Mario Sunshine, Mario Galaxy, and Mario 3D World. I think maybe Mario Galaxy 2, I don't know. Sources were saying different things. Who knows, it might not even be true. But basically, I think, you know, people who are considered insiders, in air quotes, were saying it's true. But, you know, that's another thing to take into consideration, because, you know, that collection of games, or however they are going to distribute those games, like, you know, that's something that if it were on store shelves, you know, a collection of 4 or 5 3D Mario games on one Switch cartridge, that probably would have sold super well in stores. But, with everything that's going on, they just don't have the ability to mass produce, to manufacture these physical Switch games right now for the most part. I mean, I'm not claiming to know the specifics, but that's really what it's sounding like. So that's something to consider, because apparently they were planning these remasters, and that also could play into what Nintendo's strategy is when it comes to re-releasing old games, because maybe they were planning to remaster a lot of things. Maybe they were planning a Zelda remastered collection, like what we saw on the GameCube, with those, the Zelda collection. Maybe they were planning something like that. Maybe they were planning that for a Metroid Prime trilogy. Maybe they were planning all these things, but because of what's going on, the physical, not only can new games not be worked on, in a collaborative setting right now, but also, these physical cartridges for consoles, in consoles themselves, can't really be mass produced right now, just because people shouldn't really be working right now. People need to be, as much as possible, people need to be staying inside. And I'm not turning this into a virus video. I'm trying not to use those buzzwords and stuff, because I really just want to talk about what Nintendo could be doing this year. But other than that, I mean, I would love to see stuff like, remember when the Pokemon games got re-released on the 3DS? The original Pokemon games, they were released as virtual console games on the 3DS, and I really like looking back on those releases in particular, because one, everyone was always saying like, oh, they'll never put Pokemon games on virtual console. They want to remake those games. They want to sell them for as much money as possible. But then they did, and what they did was really cool, because they added new features to those original Game Boy games. You could trade with friends, and you could even send your Pokemon from the virtual console games to your Gen 7 games, or even Gen 6 games, I think. You could, through Pokemon Bank. And that was really cool, and I think it would be really cool if we saw, Game Boy games on Switch, Game Boy Advance games on Switch. I mean, the Wii U had Game Boy Advance games. Like, it's kind of crazy thinking back on that, how the Wii U, you could download Game Boy Advance games and even DS games. Now, DS games is going to be tricky, because it worked on the Wii U because you had the gamepad, but who knows how they would do DS games on the Switch, just because the Wii U kind of, its design, its controller, it lent itself to that's probably the only console that you could ever say is perfect for playing DS games on the TV. But yeah, I mean, they, imagine if they re-released virtual console versions of Pokemon, the Game Boy Advance Pokemon games, and they added wireless functionalities to them. You could trade Pokemon with your friends online, stuff like that, but you're playing those original GBA games. And that requires work too. It's not like they just push a button and it's like, okay, old games are on the Switch now. I mean, no, it still requires, it probably requires people going into the Nintendo headquarters and working on that stuff, but it's not, that's probably something they could just put a few people in charge of, and then someone oversees it, and it's something that could be done more easily than continuing to work on whatever big projects Nintendo had coming out this year. The other thing was, I was going to talk about GameCube games. Well, actually, hold on, before I get into GameCube games, I wanted to say, like, that's the other thing too. I think Nintendo is unsure what they actually want their Nintendo Switch Online service to be. I feel like they aren't really sure. I think they're like, yeah, it's this great idea. People pay once a year and they get access to this library of games. But then I feel like they're like, maybe if we keep giving our sweaty fans these games every month, like, is this going to be too good of a value? If we keep giving them classic games every month, are we losing out on potential sales that we could get if we were releasing these games individually? I think, honestly, that's what they are starting to think. And you know what? It's like, if they want to change how they release their retro games, go ahead. I'd be okay with that, but like, just release your retro games, you know what I mean? Like, stop sitting on this nest of all of your retro games. Like, release them, put them on the Switch. People will buy them. Especially if you start getting into stuff like the Pokemon games and even like Nintendo 64 games. And I was saying, you know, releasing Nintendo 64 games on the Switch could be weird because they were planning the Mario remasters apparently. And it's like, if they were remastering Mario 64, like, was it a remake? Was it a port? Would it be weird if they released the original version of Mario 64? Because, you know, if they put 64 games on the Switch, like, Mario 64 would definitely be a day one, you know, game that they would put on there. So that's my other concern. It's like, how would releasing, you know, N64 games in other consoles, how would it conflict with what their plans are in terms of remakes and stuff like that? Because Nintendo is weird about that, except for with Mario and Luigi's Bowser's Inside Story, where you could play the DS version and the 3DS version on the same console. So they've made weird decisions like that before. You know, you could play Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver on the 3DS. You know, it was a DS game, but you could play it on the 3DS. And then they also released, you know, Gold, Silver, and Crystal on the Virtual Console. So, I mean, like, they could do things like that. They don't do things like that often because, like, if they're going to remake a game, they want people buying the remake. They don't want, you know... But at the same time, Nintendo fans will buy both anyway. Like, they're gonna be making money no matter what. So, and then... in terms of what I was going to say about GameCube games is the only thing with GameCube games, as much as I think it would be easy for them to do to port, you know, just to put GameCube games on the Switch, even if they're, you know, just digital only, like Virtual Console games. The only thing is those shoulder buttons, those analog L and R buttons on the GameCube controller. You know, it's they don't, you know, you can use GameCube controllers on the Switch with the adapter, right? But not everyone has an adapter, and not everyone has GameCube controllers. You know, the GameCube is 20 years old now. You know, there's kids who, you know, the Switch could be their first Nintendo console. They don't have GameCube controllers lying around, and, you know, who knows how hard to find the adapter is nowadays. I don't even know. So that's the thing, because, you know, games like Luigi's Mansion, games like Mario Sunshine, they took full advantage of those shoulder buttons that, you know, in Mario Sunshine you could, like, press it down halfway to keep walking and spray water with FLUDD, and in Luigi's Mansion, you know, like, if you used, like, the fire ability, you know, pressing the button down partially would shoot out, like, a stream of fire, but then if you click the button down all the way, it would shoot, like, a fireball, and, like, you wouldn't be able to replicate that on a Switch controller. You know, the Joy-Cons, a Pro controller, they don't have those shoulder buttons. So that's one reason why I think direct ports of GameCube games would be unlikely, because they would either have to release a special controller with those buttons for people who don't have GameCube controllers, or they would have to rework the games in some way so that they didn't rely on those, you know, those control features. But that's weird. I don't know what they would do with that, because, you know, with Luigi's Mansion and Mario Sunshine, those shoulder buttons play a pretty big role in, you know, how those games control. I mean, like, they're in some parts in Mario Sunshine, it's almost necessary to be able to, you know, walk and spray the, you know, water at the same time. So I don't know. So I mean, but, you know, that's a topic for another day, how they would handle, you know, GameCube ports. But yeah, I want to know what you guys think. Like, what do you think Nintendo's going to do for the rest of the year? I mean, personally, I think dipping into their back catalog would be the best idea. But, you know, who knows? Everything's up in the air. You know, people are losing their jobs. People are staying, you know, working from home. People, you know, the world's crazy right now. But I just wanted to kind of throw this discussion out there. You know, and hear, you know, I'd like to hear what you guys think too. So let me know in the comments. You know, sorry, this is a different kind of video. I feel like I, you know, do weird stuff all the time. You know, not like it really matters. I'm just, you know, trying to throw ideas out there. But this is just something I thought of today. I wanted to talk about, And I just felt it would be better just to kind of, put the mic out in front of me and just start talking, just kind of give my ideas, because, it's just, it's easier, and, like, I don't know, I just felt like this kind of discussion suited this topic. There's no point in putting on a big production just to just to talk about speculation. It would be a waste of my time and everyone's time. So yeah, guys, let me know what you think. Let me know if you think that's a cool idea or a stupid idea. I don't know. Let me know if you have a good idea. Let's all write Nintendo a big fan letter and mail it to them. So yeah, guys, take care, be safe, and let me know what you think. Have a good one.